So, hello, this is my story about homelessness. This is where I begun my story. This was in a beautiful location in Scotland where I had a dream life on a dream island, and it was absolutely beautiful. I had my own shop online and I was selling pagan things and things like incense and fairy houses and things like this, and I was making just enough to get by. I also did a part-time holiday let cleaning job on the inland, and I would go over there on a weekend and do cleaning, and I was paid per unit, so I could make about £85 a day. So I was getting by, but I was struggling. But while I lived here, I met my best friend in the whole world, who ended up becoming my partner in crime. And he ended up moving in with me in March. Unfortunately, after he'd been there for not very long, we found out that the only shop cum post office on the island was closing. And so this made it really difficult because I needed that for my work, and my friend needed the internet, which we had. I mean, all that his side of things were fine. But for me personally, I needed to have easy access to a post office and the shop. So what we decided to do was to look inland and find somewhere else to go. What we didn't realise is that this was going to be the start of something absolutely ridiculous. But I came across something on Gumtree. It was advertised really well. I spoke to the owner a few times and was told that we'd have internet, phone line, easy access to the shops, to the beach, and it looked idyllic. It really did. A beautiful log cabin. What more could you want? So we decided that that was it. We packed up our things, I gave my notice, and we decided to go and live on the inland. When we got there, I thought we'd gone to the wrong place, and we soon discovered that we had been had big time. The place was not as advertised. There was no phone line, there was no internet. As a result of this, my friend cum partner lost his online work, doing freelance work, and I lost my shop. And so it descended into an absolute devastating time of total destitution because we just did not have any money left. It soon ran out, and when it did, we realised that this was the absolute worst place to live in, because this was a place where it was so cut off, it was even more remote than the island. The nearest town was an hour's drive each way, and when you've got no money left, it costs a lot of petrol as well, so we had to cut down our trips out to the very minimum. We found no work while we were there. That was the hardest thing. There was no work to have because it was so remote. There was no industry or anything. We couldn't work for ourselves because there was no internet and no phone line, and so the money ran out. The only thing left to do was to go and live in my car. So off we went to live in the flipping car on a beach and in car parks, and that went on for some 6 weeks. That was absolutely horrendous that time. My feet swelled up, I got sick. It was February, it was freezing cold. This is the time when I met the fairies, by the way, but that's for another story. We ended up, I advertised myself heavily while I was there, and we got a job on a holiday park. We did a full season there, and at the end of the season I managed to save up enough money to buy a little caravan. And so I decided that when the season ended in October, we was going to go travelling. So we went up into the Scottish Islands travelling, and that went on for some time. We went all over and it was absolutely great. Unfortunately, we came back to the park and things didn't work out, and again ended up homeless. And so we moved into a tent in a forest and we stayed there for 6 weeks. It was very grim because again our money had run out and things were just dire. We couldn't find work from a tent, and so we came back home to my family, and this is where we've been ever since, living in a council flat. Now it took 9 weeks to get this, so for 9 weeks we had to live rough as well. So the homelessness has gone on for some time. Now the hardest thing for me about being here is it doesn't feel like a home, because when you get used to living in the countryside and living in a rural life, coming back to suburbia is absolutely horrendous for people like me, because I don't belong here anymore. There's no magic, there's no peace, there's no tranquility, there's no space. I have a piano and it's electric, so I have to play that with my headphones on, because it's just too much to play a piano in a flat with neighbours. So I'm consciously aware all the time of the noise and everything. So our next move is to get out of here, and to do that he has had to go and get a job in a factory which he hates, and work alongside that doing his projects, and I am setting up my online shop again, and this time I'm doing homemade items like gothic knits and things like this. So our aim is to get back out of here by spring of 2018, and hopefully get the life that I really want, which is mostly off-grid and rural, and hopefully Scotland or Wales. So our next trip will be to Wales to go and explore and see if we prefer that to Scotland, and if we do, that's where we go next time. So the adventure continues. So the thing that I wanted to point out is that not all homelessness is seen, and we did different types of homelessness, and I don't know if people noticed, apart from the forest. We got noticed in the forest because our cars were parked up there and the locals would see us there. I think that was the only time we were actually recognised as homeless, and the rest of the time nobody would have known. When we went shopping, nobody batted an eyelid at us because we just blended in. There was a story of this is up in Scotland, when we went to a soup kitchen, and I actually went there to volunteer, but I probably felt sorry for us because we were homeless ourselves. So she said, "No, I don't want you to volunteer, I want you to come and have some tea." So we went and had a meal there, and the people were lovely. But one day I was sat talking, and I was saying to somebody how cold it was in the car, and one of the ladies pulled me over and she said, "Can I have a quiet word, please?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Can you please stop talking about your car, because some people here don't have cars." And I thought that was quite hilarious, because we lived in a car, that was our home, and the people I were talking to had flats or houses. So she was telling me not to talk about living in my car to people who had a home when I didn't have one, and I thought that was really ironic. And then not long after that, she was talking about how lucky she was that she hadn't been caught for bedroom tax because she was a pensioner. And she said, "That means I don't have to pay for my 2 spare bedrooms." And I thought, you're saying that to an homeless person who lives in a car, and you're telling me not to talk about my car. And I thought, this is hilarious. And then the other thing that got to me as well is we were homeless with 2 dogs, and we were not allowed to take the dogs into the kitchen. It wasn't actually the kitchen area, you know, the dining area. They wasn't allowed in the building. So the dogs had to stay in the freezing cold car while we got a hot meal, which is something that really bothers me even now, because we basically say, we are a nation of dog lovers, and yet we quite happily desert them when we've got nowhere to live, and we happily shut the door on them and don't let them anywhere. They're not part of our family anymore. They're not part of our society. They're not welcome anymore. When we came back down here to England, and we had to do the 9 weeks waiting for somewhere to live, it only took 9 weeks because nobody would accept pets. And that was something that really upset me, because everybody got angry with me and said, you've got to let them go. It's time to let them go. You've got to think about yourself now. And I just couldn't understand the mentality, because I thought, is that something you would say to a mother who had children? You know, what about if we turn around at some point and say, from now on, children are not allowed to be housed as well. Would you give up your children? And most people would say, well, don't be so ridiculous. Of course I wouldn't. Well, do you know what? My dogs are my children. That is how I see them. They are my family. So we were homeless as long as we were, partly because I have dogs that I never gave up on. They're still with me now, and they'll be with me till they die. And that's the end of that one. So this is just part of the homeless story. Obviously, it is a long story because it's a 19-month story. But I thought I'll just make it short and sweet to say that not all homelessness is seen. It's not all recognised, and you can get through it. It's all about the mind. I turned the homelessness into an adventure and started to write about it while I was living in my car, and tried to turn it into a positive. And I'm not saying it was positive, because there were times I wanted to give in and just end it all. It was just horrendous at times, absolutely horrendous. In retrospect, I can laugh about some of it, and I can write about it and talk about it, but I just wanted to say that it's not always the end. You can lose it all and end up homeless, but there is a way out. So thank you for listening to my story, and let's see if this worked, because I don't even know if this animation has worked. Sorry, narration. Okay, thank you.